Good morning. Hello. Anybody home? Tuesday. Today is day 20 of my own social distancing quarantine. Day 20. I started a couple of days early. Hey, oh, we got some folks. Zach, Naomi, Tiffany. Hey, good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Tori, hi. Aurelia, hi. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with a Pastor. I have my No Exceptions t-shirt on, very proudly rocking it. You may notice, here, let me drop some links in here for you. One is the link to the Daily Office lectionary. There's one. Another is a link to an article in Time, as in Time magazine. Are they coming? Yeah, okay. And then another is a link to an article in the Harvard Business Review. Hey, Paige. Good morning. And lastly, an extra. Some things to check out that will hopefully give you comfort and space to process, because we are processing so much. We are processing so much right now, you guys. Oh, there's John Singletary. John, I'm so glad you're here, because I need to make an Enneagram comment and you need to correct me if I'm wrong. I'll get there. I'll get there in a minute. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. I want to read you a few things and then hopefully connect the dots. Okay, thing number one is the psalm that is in today's Daily Office lectionary reading for today. It is Psalm 143, and it says, Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my cry for mercy. In your faithfulness and righteousness come to my relief. Do not bring your servant into judgment, for no one is living righteous before you. The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in the darkness like those long dead. So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. I spread out my hands to you. I thirst for you like a parched land. Okay, then we've got another psalm. Here's Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. Here's another. I'm going to throw a few out at you. Here's Habakkuk 1. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help and you will not listen, or cry to you violence and you will not save? Why do you make me see wrongdoing and look at trouble? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law becomes slack and justice never prevails. The wicked surround the righteous. Therefore judgment comes forth perverted. That's Habakkuk 1. And okay, I'm giving you those to highlight the fact that our scriptural tradition, the tradition of our sacred text, and the tradition of our faith, the wisdom tradition that is Christianity, has a very strong within it, a very strong component of lament. And I'll just, I want to read just a tiny bit from this Time article that N.T. Wright wrote that was floating around on my social media feed yesterday, and I was so glad to see it. As thinking, well, how can we learn to embrace this tradition of lament? Here's, let me pull up what I wanted. Okay, here. N.T. Wright says, rationalists, including Christian rationalists, want explanations. Romantics, including Christian romantics, want to be given a sigh of relief. But perhaps what we need more than either is to recover the biblical tradition of lament. Lament is what happens when people ask why and don't get an answer. It's where we get to when we move beyond our self-centered worry about our sins and failings and look more broadly at the suffering of the world. The whole article I recommend. I linked it there in the comments to this Time article by N.T. Wright. And I just one other thing. The point of lament, woven thus into the fabric of the biblical tradition, is not just that it's an outlet for our frustration, sorrow, loneliness, and sheer inability to understand what is happening or why. The mystery of the biblical story is that God also laments. So the divine is therefore with us in our sorrow and in our suffering. So to lament is to give voice to pain. And if you listen to my homily that I was preaching on Sunday, we have this sort of contrast between, okay, well, how does spirit behave and how does ego behave? And I want us to remember, I want us to be cognizant, okay, that the ego resists pain. The ego resists grief. It resists lament. And it does this out of fear often. It does this because it's terrified that if we let one feeling of pain in, then the whole cohort of feelings are going to overwhelm us and we'll never get up again. So the ego is trying to preserve itself. So we tend to resist. We'll begin to numb ourselves. We'll turn to alcohol or food or distractions, like maybe we're overworking or there are plenty of ways to avoid feeling your feelings. Maybe we're over spiritualizing or spiritual bypassing. Those are great topics to look up so that you can learn to realize when you start to do that, when you start to fall in the trap of over spiritualizing or spiritual bypassing. I don't have time to get into what that is. Maybe my next Coffee with a Pastor will be about over spiritualizing and spiritual bypassing. And then another thing that the ego likes to blame shift. The ego likes to say, well, I didn't do it, and it's not my fault, so therefore it's not my responsibility, and it's too dangerous to try to fix anyway. And the other thing the ego likes to do is disconnect. It likes to say, well, those guys are in New York City, and the problem is happening there, and I'm in Texas, and my situation is totally different, so therefore it's not my problem and it doesn't affect me. Okay, it's horseshit, right? Because we're all connected and because we believe in oneness and wholeness, and we believe that the divine connects us to all other beings and that we're all connected. And so at that point, I want to come in and bring you an excerpt from this article in the Harvard Business Review, if I could speak, entitled, my cousin Christopher sent me this yesterday, and just as an aside, this article came to me yesterday in a day when I was really feeling my feelings. I had known rationally that the order for another month of social distancing was inevitable and that it was gonna come, and then on Sunday it finally came. And despite the fact that that some part of me was mentally prepared for that, it still felt like a sucker punch to my gut of just another wave of grief that Normal is gone. I can kiss normal goodbye. It's not coming back anytime soon. And whatever emerges next out after this pandemic is going to be different. It's not going to be the same. And so yesterday I was in my feelings about that and feeling a heaviness, feeling physically tired, feeling like physically I didn't have the energy to do things, things that I felt like I needed to do, like clean the house or whatever, lots of things, work out, caretake, work ahead for today. And here's what I've learned about myself. I've learned that it's always better for me to feel the feelings that are coming up when they come up, because then the path is shorter. If I go ahead and accept, okay, here is grief and sadness, and it's manifesting for me in this moment as a physical feeling of heavy, exhausted tiredness, if I can just accept that, then my journey to the other side of feeling differently, of feeling more free from that, is shorter. If I shove the feeling away, then I'm dooming myself to a longer period of wrestling and of struggling against. And this is what we call ego resistance. That's the ego. When we're tempted to do that, it's the ego saying, no, I can't feel pain. I can't feel grief. We don't engage in lament around here. And this is where John Singletary comes in. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think that probably, in all likelihood, if you identify yourself as a Enneagram 3, 7, or 8, you might have more temptation with that. More temptation to... my partner calls me, he says that he has like he's an Enneagram 3, and he says he has like a black box he just puts the feelings into, so that he doesn't have to look at them. And he's self-aware enough, he knows that he's doing that and can eventually go, oh, there, I put all the feelings in the black box, and I'm going to eventually have to go and clean out the black box. But all that is to say, some of us are going to have a harder time feeling our feelings than others are. I'm an Enneagram 4, so I think I have kind of an advantage in terms of feeling my feelings. And I've also done it enough to just know, to have experience with the fact that I've got to feel them so that I can get through them, so that the next day I can get up and feel differently. Okay, let me just read you this from this article. It's called That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief. And, if I can find, okay. This is a grief researcher. Says we're feeling a number of different griefs. We feel the world has changed, and it has. We know it's temporary, but it doesn't feel that way, and we realize things will be different. Just as going to the airport is forever different from how it was before 9/11, things will change, and this is the point at which they changed. And he says, okay, we're feeling more than one kind of grief. And here's the other kind. We're feeling what he calls anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is that feeling we get about what the future holds when we're uncertain. Usually it centers on death. We feel it when someone gets a dire diagnosis, or when we have the normal thought that we'll lose a parent someday. Anticipatory grief is also more broadly imagined futures. There's a storm coming. There's something bad out there. With a virus, this kind of grief is so confusing for people. Our primitive mind knows something bad has happened, but you can't see it, and this breaks our sense of safety, and we are feeling that loss of safety. He says, I don't think we've collectively lost our sense of general safety like this before. People have never felt this on a macro level, he points out. Okay. There was one other part of that article that I wanted to point out. Oh, he has some great advice about how to come into the present and to get yourself out of that anticipatory grief / anxiety cycle, and which I highly recommend you reading it. And Here's the other thing. He says, there's something powerful about naming this as grief. It helps us feel what's inside of us. So many have told me in the past week, I'm telling my coworkers I've had a hard time, or I cried last night. And when you name it, you feel it, and it moves through you. He says, emotions need motion. It's important we acknowledge what we go through. If we allow the feelings to happen, they'll happen in an orderly way, and it empowers us. Sometimes we try not to feel what we're feeling because we have this image of a gang of feelings. If I feel sad and let that in, it'll never go away. Okay, that's our ego fear that I was just mentioning. The gang of bad feelings will overrun me. The truth is a feeling that moves through us. We feel it and it goes, and then we go to the next feeling. There is no gang out to get us. It's absurd to think we shouldn't feel grief right now. Let yourself feel the grief and keep going. Let yourself feel the grief and keep going. And I think our tradition offers us so much in the way of learning to feel grief, learning to lean in. Oh, nines too. Yeah. I'm seeing that comment. Yeah, probably nines too. That's totally true. Yeah, Enneagram 9, you're probably going to feel some resistance to want to... I think everybody is, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think everybody is. But if you identify as 3, 7, 8, or 9, you just might have more tendency when the feelings, and I say when and not if. I'm saying when. I'm saying when the feeling of grief, the feeling of sadness and heaviness and however it manifests for you, becomes like niggling over here on like the edge of your consciousness, it's easier for some people to push it out again, to not want to engage. Oh, Aurelia's pointing out the part where he says not to compare your grief to others. Don't sweep it away because someone has it harder. Feel your own grief and work through it. Yeah. So our tradition gives us so much in the way of tools for this. And I'm actually working, if you're a Patreon subscriber of mine, I'm working on a post entitled Tools for Lament. I'm going to have some litanies in there. I'm going to have some just various resources because I think this is the time to do it. We don't have answers. We don't have... This is what we have. This is what we have to offer the world, is to learn, for us to all learn how to feel our feelings and move through them. So that is my encouragement for us today, that your feelings are not going to gang up on you. And in fact, the conundrum is, which there's always a conundrum in every great faith truth. The conundrum is that going into powerlessness helps us recover our power. Going into the feelings of powerlessness will ultimately help us recover our power and pull us out of that feeling of victimhood. So take a minute and read those articles if you can. I'm sending love to you today, and I'm sending peace. And reach out and let us know how you're doing, feeling your feelings. Love you guys. Later.